Welcome to Through the Trauma podcast. My name is Amber Larkins, published photographer, storytelling expert, visual artist, entrepreneur, speaker, and coach. This podcast was born from one question: how do I get inspiring stories of triumph out to the people who need to hear them the most? Come with me, enter my world, where lives are getting changed, heroes are getting developed, and greatness is being achieved. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Through the Trauma podcast. I'm Amber Larkins, your host, and today I have with me Miss Lisa Mackie. She grew up in Southern California, but is now a Tennessee resident. She began serving in a local pregnancy resource center where she eventually became a client advocate. In 2014, she attended a retreat called Deeper Still that brought profound life changes to her. Now she has started Deeper Still Upper Cumberland in 2016, where she is the executive director. She loves meeting new people, hearing about their life journey, and enjoys encouraging others to heal from their past traumas. Lisa, thank you so much for being here with us today. I'm so excited to talk to you and hear your story.
Amber, thank you. It's a pleasure. This kind of stuff is fun. I know some people get nervous about it, but I am too.
Yeah. Well, don't be nervous. I really believe that, these kinds of things gives you a voice to share, and it also allows people to know that we're human and life is not perfect. Sometimes it's really messy. And, everyone has trauma that they've overcome. And it's the beauty that we find in things that we're doing after using that trauma for triumph that is really beautiful. So I know that's what you're doing. And I'm so blessed to have you here today to share with us and get your voice heard and get out there and help some other people that may be struggling through these same things.
Amber, when you say other people may be struggling, that is actually one thing that's always big on my heart that people don't realize is there are 1 in every 3.5 women that have had an abortion, and there are actually 1 in every 5 men who have been affected by it. And those are statistics that are astounding and a lot of people don't realize.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's something, honestly, we don't talk about. I feel like as a culture, as a society, it's not something that is publicized. It's something that's very well hidden. I mean, if someone's experienced an abortion, they hide it. They can hide it. They don't have to talk about it, which I found from even doing this podcast, the more that people hide trauma or stuff it down inside, especially when they're affected by it, can have a profound effect, negative effect on that person. And so I think when you're experiencing something like this that can be hidden, there's probably a lot of hurt that people are not talking about. But that's what we're here to do today, is to talk about this and get the word out and make it more not make abortion socially acceptable, but make talking about the healing process from that more socially acceptable.
Yeah, I think that we as a culture need to learn how to do that. No matter what the pain is, we need to learn how to talk about the hard stuff because it is going to manifest somehow in one way or another. And with abortion, a lot of times the symptoms of that are it manifests in depression, anxiety, substance abuse, self-hatred, isolation, the list goes on and on. And there's I should say, an inappropriate communication really that is not accurate where people say, oh, people are silently suffering. Well, those symptoms that I just described, they're anything but silent. And they affect everybody around us. And we don't even realize it. It's affecting everybody that we love, people that we work with, our friends, people we go to church with. They're not silent because when we have all those things going on, it's not pretty. These things are not pretty that come out of those manifestations. And so,
yeah, no, not at all. And, this is the thing that I think a lot of people need to know is that it's okay to talk. I think people fear, there's a lot of fear surrounded by trauma, every type of trauma, but probably this one for sure. There's fear of
Yeah.
like what what's people going to think? What am I going to be, excommunicated from church, or am I going to be judged, or is people going to look down upon me, or there's so many fears, social fears that come along with something like this that makes it very easy to hide. And when people start
Mhm.
trying to cope with things on their own, sometimes that's the beauty of having fellowship, I feel like, with other people, is that we're human beings. We're not made to fight through things alone. We're made to connect with other people. And my hope and my heart is that people will hear your story and hear some of the
Mm.
story, some of the different things that you've helped other clients through, getting through this healing process, and maybe realize that they don't have to go through this alone. And like you said, even though it's silent in that they don't talk about it, it's not silent in the way that it manifests in their lives.
It's funny, Amber, that you say that we're not made to just work through things by ourselves, because that's one thing that I say to, a lot of my friends and, people that come to us. There's actually no special seat next to Jesus for people that work through everything all by themselves, and that's this idea, like, I'm just going to get through it.
Mhm.
Either that or just I'm going to stuff this pain. And if I don't think about it, then I'll be okay.
Mm.
Except for you're not okay. Because if you have to edit out a part of your life, that was an indication to me. Why does nobody close to me know this? That's an indication that something's not right. Something about this wasn't good or isn't good.
Mhm.
And like you said, it's that fear. And so many people, they fear rejection. They fear of losing everything, which is, the lie that we believe. Oh my goodness, nobody will love me. And that's just a lie.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, for sure. Do you want to start, Lisa, by kind of just sharing a little bit? I know that I have this thought that people who have come out of a particular type of trauma and then they help other people, there's healing involved in that. For the person that's helping, teaching, coaching, mentoring, sharing resources, I think there's healing in that. And I see this a lot with guests that come on, that people that have had a particular type of trauma, they are working in that type of trauma, helping other people overcome. So, can you speak a little bit to your experience with that, like your personal experience and how that's helped you in what you do today?
yes. I didn't, but many of us don't realize how much it's affecting our lives. And so many of us also um, go through the stage of how did I do that? When you realize the depth of that decision, and then you begin to think, oh my goodness, how did I do that? And you start unpacking it quite honestly. And because there's this misconception that life was perfect. We had an abortion and life went on to be perfect. Well, that was not my story. And that was actually, I don't know anybody's that was the story. And I know some people step into trauma, but for me, for this, it was traumas upon traumas actually. And that led me to the dark place that I made this decision and regretted later. And so many of us do. But it's like, how do you then take a regret that big and and say, yeah, I shouldn't have done that, because there's this idea that you can't. But as you're speaking though, when you realize, oh my goodness, healing from this changed my life, like it absolutely changed my life, and I want other people to know that they can heal. It's a big deal to know you don't have to walk in the shame, the regret, the pain of it every day, which is part of that fear that we talked about, that you put it on a shelf and you don't allow yourself to feel. Well, there's a fear that if you feel anything about it, you're going to have to feel the pain. Because what you don't realize in making that decision, that at some point in time, it's going to hit your brain, the depth of the reality of it all. And to understand that you change the course of somebody else's life is going to hit you pretty hard. That you change whether or not they, who their friends were, that they would have a wedding, where they would go to school, just all those things. And then when you accept the reality of that wasn't just a somebody, that was my child. Like, oh, I never got to send that child off to the first day of school. I never got to celebrate their 18th birthday or have their graduation or plan their wedding. Just all of that at some point in time often hits people, and everybody tried, not everybody, many people try to stuff it as much as they can until they can't anymore. And the biggest thing that people need to know is that you have to grieve. When you face that reality, there's a necessity to grieve. And there's this idea that, well, I made that decision, so I can't grieve. But it's a loss of a family member. And you would grieve the loss of a family member and the loss of everything that comes with that. And so that deception of, no, you made that decision, so you can't feel, you can't, it's a lie. It's a lie. Like, we can have regrets that change our life and change somebody else's life.
Well, and, as you're talking, I'm thinking too, like, it's always hard to make comparisons. It's always hard to say, well, this is compared to this. But when you look at any type of mistake or decision that we've made, maybe we're not knowledgeable in that time in our life, or for whatever reason we've made a decision. And I'm not saying this particular decision, but any decision that then we suffer consequences for and regret and shame, then there comes a sense of we have to learn how to cope with that decision and heal from it. The problem, I feel like, comes in where people, they will make these decisions. For those that are listening that are believers, you know sin is sin and there's consequences to it, and the adversary does come and tries to make you feel shame and guilt and fear and all the things that are not of God, and you feel these things, and then you don't know how to deal with it. But ultimately, it is a destruction to yourself. I have I have never experienced this personally, not abortion, but I have experienced things that I'm deeply shameful about, and they were decisions that I made. I made those decisions and I suffered the shame of those decisions, and I couldn't face those things for a really long time. And I have nothing to really compare this particular thing to other than that, which is totally different. But I think it boils down to this, which is you have to know that as humans, we make mistakes. We do things, we make decisions that for whatever reason, like I said, maybe we're not knowledgeable at the time, maybe we don't realize we're in a situation, or whatever the case is, you make that decision, later you suffer regret and shame or whatever emotional things that you suffer. Those are natural consequences, but they have to be dealt with just as any other type of trauma. It has to be dealt with because, like you said, Lisa, stuffing stuff is just, it's going to come out eventually, whether that is in the form of depression or that is in the form of acting out or in the form of other bad decisions stacking on top of that. It's going to come out. So the goal is to heal. The goal is to find peace. What are your thoughts about, and I know you work with clients, so what are your thoughts about working with people as they're navigating through this and they're caught in the depths of that shame and regret? How do you navigate people through that?
Well, it's really important. And I think this is where it's important what you talked about earlier, people that have had experiences that then can go on and help others and teach others. I mean, I did. I found myself in a place of how could I have done that? And then when I go back, it's really getting to what was the root? How did you become vulnerable to making that decision in the first place? Because as you think back, looking back on that, like, how could I have made that decision? And many of us think that, but as I unpack it all, it makes sense. It makes sense how I got to that dark place. I grew up in a non-Christian home with alcohol and violence, um, and that was a part of life. And so I was ashamed. I was ashamed of what was going on in our household. But I was going to keep the secret. Like, I was one of 6 children. And with all that going on in our home, we didn't even talk to each other about it, much less tell anybody. We didn't tell, aunts, uncles, neighbor, like we didn't tell anybody. But the violence often was loud. There's no way that people could not hear some of the things coming out of our home, but you walked outside and you walked like nothing was going on. So at an early age, I learned the tools of shame and secrecy. And those would be the tools that I would go on to navigate through life with. And then as a teenager, when I was 15, I had my best friend's mother died instantaneously of a massive heart attack. And we got home just on time to see them loading her dead body into an ambulance. And then the next year, when I was 16, my 19-year-old brother committed suicide. And then the next year, when I was 17, my father died in a car accident driving. So boom, 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 3 major traumas back to back. And I was already, came from a broken home. And so you add those 3 losses, and I didn't know anybody that was a believer. Nobody was speaking truth or hope or love or Jesus to me at all. So how do you deal with all that loss as a teenager? So I went, oh, wow, okay, life can end just like that, with the snap of a finger. And okay, so I'm just going to live life on full throttle then, because what if that's me? Then I'm going to live. That I'm what we think is live right out in the world. And so I began to live very reckless, and no surprise, very promiscuous and drinking. And then the next thing you know, no surprise, pregnant at age 19. And I was going to go to my old friends of shame and secrecy, and I didn't tell anybody close to me. I told a woman that I hardly knew, and she said, "Oh, don't worry, you can just get an abortion. In fact, I'll take you tomorrow." And that's exactly what happened. Not telling anybody close to me and keeping that secret. And so I would go on to keep that secret of abortion for 29 years using shame and secrecy again. And I couldn't even say the word abortion for 29 years. So it's that idea of unpacking what was the root of all of this in the first place. Like, I didn't, because of all the crazy, what I call the crazy, I didn't know my own self-worth. I had no idea I had value. And if I didn't know my own value, how on earth would I know the value of a child growing inside me? And I can't honestly even say that I remember trying to decipher that if it was a child or not. I don't remember that. I just remember that I was in a situation that needed to change. And I took somebody's very bad advice. But it's helping somebody. Usually people are in some part of their life. It's amazing how often we hear of what happened before the abortion. There's often some kind of sexual, physical, emotional abuse, a loss of a parent, a divorce of a parent, suicide, a loss of a sibling. I mean, often we hear of these stories that there was more that happened before. Not always, but it's very frequent. Let me just say that. So it's helping them to get to the point of how do we get on this path to darkness in the first place? How did we get to the point of not understanding our own self-worth and you know, and healing from that. Like, no, we mean more to the Lord than this. It is really getting to the place of God has so much more for us than this pain and shame and guilt that we're walking in. And how do we step out of that? How do we step out of the place of that is not who I am anymore? I made a really bad decision and I regret that. I regret not having that child in my life. But that person, that's not who I am anymore. And it's helping them understand that. It's helping them understand Jesus forgives. And it doesn't, and I want to make sure that I make this clear. I am not telling people have an abortion, Jesus will just forgive you. I want to make sure that people understand you just may walk through the desert for 40 years after that decision. It's having a clear understanding. He wants to heal you because he wants to use you. He wants to use your story to help somebody else, whether it be to help somebody else heal, whether it be to help somebody else that's in the very difficult place of that hard decision in the crossroads of a life and death decision. You know, I was a client advocate for 5 years, and some of the best words I ever heard was, "Oh my goodness, I almost made the worst decision of my life." And they chose life for their child because people don't realize that is a decision for a lifetime. I know you think in the moment, and I'm not going to lie, in the moment you feel like, okay, but and people think, well, with time it gets easier. This is one thing that actually it doesn't. With time, it gets worse.
I totally agree with you. We make decisions that can change the trajectory of our lives. So we have to be
Absolutely.
careful how we make those decisions for sure. If you are in the middle of trying to figure out should you do something like have an abortion or not, you must realize that there are going to be consequences forever past that. And that's the reality of making a decision like Lisa said, this changes in the trajectory in a moment. But I also know that there is for people that have made this decision and there's no going back, the decision's been made, the action's been taken, and now you are trying to figure out what to do with yourself, with your life, with your emotions. You have to also know that there's this thing, and the Bible talks about God exchanges beauty for ashes or ashes for beauty. Um, and I look at you, Lisa, and I think, you made this decision, you have suffered and you have dealt with the consequences of it, but yet look at what you're doing now and how many babies you've probably saved by being able to talk to different women through these decisions, um, making them recognize the reality and the cold hard truth of making a decision like this. And I truly believe that if in the midst of our sin, our mistakes, our shame, all the things, God takes all of those things and he can make it beautiful. Life is messy. Life can be really messy. But when we give it over, like
Mhm.
fully submit and say, you use me how you want to
Mhm.
use me.
Mhm.
It's not easy. It's not always easy, but it can be beautiful. But nothing that's beautiful is easy, I don't think. So
Yeah.
it takes
Amen.
it takes work. I want to hear your thoughts about you work in this from day to day. So you see these decisions being made. You're walking through with people through these the healing process. What are your thoughts in society and in culture? Are you seeing a rise in these decisions as politically our landscape, is changing? Um, with companies like Planned Parenthood that is condoning this, not only condoning it, but really pushing it. What are your thoughts about seeing these things happen in our culture and what effect does that have on the clients that you're seeing?
It breaks my heart, actually. because the climate is changing, and it was bad enough in my day and age, in that we went and a procedure was done to us, and there was enough trauma that came with that. Trust me, and you can hear many stories of things going awry and not good things happening in that. And so there's a lie out there that um, just take this pill, you can do it in the privacy of your own home. So the access to the abortion pill, which some places, just for deception, don't even call it the abortion pill, they call it the missed period pill. Oh, you've missed your period, so just take this pill and you'll have your period. So that again, like there's just so much deception. But with people taking the abortion pill that can be taken up to, I believe it's either 69 or 70 days after conception. So it's far down the road. Um, and what it will do, it will induce an abortion. And um, where that's challenging is before women were at a clinic and there was an abortion doctor that was doing this. Now they, or even giving them the pill and telling them things, but now they're going home thinking they're going to do it secretly. Now they, in their own home, now they've become the abortionist, and their home has become the abortion clinic. And this is where more trauma is coming, is they are also seeing things that they did not expect to see, and they're traumatized. They're absolutely traumatized. And I don't mean to be crude or crass, but they're seeing things in their toilet they don't expect to see. And it's very hard on them, and they don't know what to do. They don't know what to do with that. And there was a gal, that at one point it was at a so I'm not divulging anything secret. She spoke actually at a seminar that I attended, and she said that she had to move from her apartment because every day she was returning to the scene of the crime. So it is, this thing that we think is now easy and private, and, it's not. It's not easy. And so then here they think they're doing it in the privacy of their own home. Now they have more of a thing that they're trying, manifesting in their own mind, and that they can't tell anybody. Like they intended to take it to their grave because they took, I did, even when I went to a clinic, but now they've seen things. And if their husband or their boyfriend was with them, now he too has seen. Can you imagine the trauma if she's just like freaking out in the bathroom, and then he comes in, and now, what does that do to a guy that's created to be a protector? That's going to impact him, which, is something I want you to know, is we do also have men at our retreats. We have, it's tastefully done. We have men that minister only to men and women that minister only to women, but this is impacting men as well. This is a huge issue that people think is no big deal, but it's turning, it has been, it's been a big deal since day one. It's been a big deal, but it is becoming an even bigger deal with some of the trauma that these women are seeing and experiencing. And they're struggling. They're struggling with what they have done. I think because now they are seeing very clearly firsthand the results of it.
Mm. What are your thoughts about, or are you seeing anything about like the desensitization? So you have these people that they see these things and they feel remorse, immediate remorse and shame and trauma. But then you have other people who maybe see these things and has completely just been non-remorseful of it. Um, do you see that happening at all?
Well, there are some that's what they think. They think that they're going to be okay, but that's usually before they've actually gone through it, and then after they've seen things, and they're like, oh my goodness, 'cause they're like, no, I'm fine. I'm going to be fine with this, but they're not. The people that afterwards are still desensitized, they're not going to come to us. So I'm not seeing that. I'm sure at the pregnancy resource centers, they might be seeing that. Um, and sometimes you have to stay in that state of numb to cope. That's how they're going to cope. That's how they're going to get through. Like, no, I'm good with what I did. And they're gonna hang on to that. And they may for a lifetime. But sometimes the Lord is just like me. It was 29 years, Amber, and I stuffed it. I stuffed it. But, like I said, there should have been something indicating to me, you're not okay with this because nobody knows. Like, why haven't you told anybody? So, and here's the thing is some people, the ones that are desensitized or want to shout their abortion or any of that, it's well, who made you feel guilty? You know what? Nobody made me feel guilty. I literally did not tell anybody. And then but this was one of the reasons I didn't go to church because I didn't think I could. I didn't think God wanted me there. And I certainly didn't think his people wanted me there because of what I had done. And then when at age 46, I came to know the Lord, and 2 years later went to a women's conference. And at that point in time, I had not thought about my abortion. And there was a healing ceremony, and the woman doing leading that, she said, is there anything you want to lay at the cross? Anything you just want to leave with Jesus once and for all? Now, mind you, I had not thought about my abortion for a long time. At least I thought I hadn't. Immediately, my abortion came to my mind. And she said, just write it on this Post-it note. And so I did. Like, it was the first time I actually acknowledged my abortion. And so I wrote it super tiny on this Post-it note. And then I went up to the cross and I tacked it to the cross. And then, I thought I folded it up in a million little pieces because I didn't want anybody to see what it said. And then from the cross, for the first time, I went to the altar and I wept for my unborn child.
It's the first time you had grieved over that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And so many people, that's why I say at some point, you might think you're not feeling anything, and you might not, until you crack, until you just go, okay, what I did was pretty big. So there might be a desensitized to this. And I think it's a coping. Some may take it to their grave. I don't know. But again, I don't know how you change the course of somebody else's life and not feel anything about it ever, unless you're a robot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I think the thing that bothers me, that I have, when I became a Christian, I looked at this a lot. This was a hot topic. I don't,
Yeah.
I don't know that it's not something we hear about anymore. I don't necessarily, maybe we're on social media and the algorithm shows us what we look at the most, but I don't see it as much as I did then. But I did start looking into it a lot, and it really broke my heart. As I just, it was like a hot topic back then. And this whole thing with Planned Parenthood was getting a lot of press. And I think the thing that really made me the most angry is that there's this push to take girls that are younger and younger and younger, convince them that this is the right thing to do. Like, hey, this baby is going to affect your whole life. Like, it's going to, and kids do. It's true. Kids do affect your life, but in so many beautiful ways. Are they hard? Yes. Are they beautiful? Yes. Kids are such a blessing. I have two, and they're such a blessing. So while there's like some truth to what they're saying. It's painted in all this deception. And you have young people who, maybe they got a thriving, looks like they're having a thriving career that's gonna happen in their life. And now a baby has come into the picture and it's gonna change everything. And then you have these adults at this place. They go to a pregnancy resource center, such as Planned Parenthood, and you have these adults that say, hey, you know what? It's no big deal. Like, no one even has to know. Your parents don't have to know. No one has to know.
Mm.
And
Mm.
like you said, I mean, I think the trauma stacks on, this could come from a rooted trauma that happened before, and then this can stack on top of more trauma in the future. And it's just really heartbreaking.
Well, what happened with me and what happens a lot of times too is once you do this, because you feel like you've crossed the line that there is no return. And I started to live like, well, I've done this. What else does it matter what I do? And I know a lot of people do that. But it often leads to substance. Like I said, I drank quite a bit after that. People start self-medicating. It leads to other stuff just because you cope, and you also live like, well, I've done this. There's the worst thing you can do. And almost like it's a bad path you can't get off of. Like you said, the adversary, he really does want to kill, steal, and destroy. But you can get off this path. And the whole idea of where they want to lead gals to think that kids change their lives. And yes, they do. And I have 3 of my own, but that's what made me so mad at myself was when I faced the reality of, I was successful in corporate America but at the same time, as I was raising my 3 boys, I was involved in their sports. I baked cupcakes, I did all this stuff. And when I realized I was designed to be a multitasker, like I had a lot of things going, and I went, I so could have done that. Like I could have taken care of my own baby. And then believing the lie of, I can't afford this, which so many people do. Okay, maybe I should have traded in the cover charge at the bar and all the alcohol for diapers and wipes. It's the lie. It's getting to a pregnancy resource center that's pro-life that can help you see, okay, what do you see as your obstacles? And truly talking through those and going, no, okay, here's a solution to that. Here's a resource that can help you with that. Because there's actually so many of us where we've talked about, if somebody would have poured something into us and told us, no, you are valuable, first of all, and you can do this. You are a strong person, and here's all the qualities that you have. And to be an encouragement instead of just being in that lie by yourself of, I can't do this. And then, or the worst thing is having somebody else say, you don't need to do it, and there's an easy way out, and you're not going to feel a thing about it. And it's a lie. And actually making it seem like it's the most horrible thing that's ever going to happen to you. No, it's not. You know, it just isn't. It just isn't. And a lot of times when we face the reality of how I could have done it, that's a bitter pill to swallow too. But they don't tell you that. There's a whole lot of things they don't tell you with your choice other than this child's going to ruin your life, which is a lie.
Well, and there's something too that I feel like should be said if for people that are possibly on the fence about something like this, is that
Yes.
I do believe all things happen for a reason. I don't think there's mistakes. I think God doesn't
Yeah.
make mistakes. And
Yeah.
so when there is conception happens and a child is in the womb, that child has a purpose, has a
Yes.
destiny. It has a reason to be here on this earth. And I truly believe that when we look at things like that, like this person has a destiny, we talk about how
Mm.
being formed in our mother's womb, God knew us. He knew who we were. He knew what we were going to do. He's ordained our life purpose, like our plan, like what we're here to do. He's gifted each of us with different things. And so I think when you look at things like, hey, there's no mistakes.
Yeah.
Maybe I made a
Yeah.
mistake by having a one night stand, or maybe I made a mistake
Yeah.
by, you know, having sex with my boyfriend before we got married, or whatever, there there's so many layers to that, okay? But
Yeah.
once the child is consummated and the child is there, there's no mistake. That child is supposed to be here. I encourage people to know that's not a mistake.
Yeah.
And I think when you can look at it like that, this is not a mistake. This is something that is supposed to be here. It kind of changes things, because who knows? You look at people that have been super impactful in the world and done amazing things. You look at someone like Princess Diana. She's the first one comes to my mind, but she's done amazing things in the world, right? But how would it have been different? Like there would have been many lives not affected had she never been here. But
Yeah.
she was ordained to be here. She was supposed to be here, and she was supposed to live her life and live throughout her purpose. So
Yeah.
I want people to be encouraged. My heart is, if you're on the fence with this, or if you know someone that's on the fence with this, like,
Yeah.
think through these things before you go and do something like this. But again, going back to loving someone who's been through this, there's no judgment there either. You If you
Yeah.
make a mistake, you feel remorse. You shouldn't have to hurt through that for the rest of your life. Like, there is healing. There is resources. You look at someone like Lisa, who's doing amazing things, helping people heal and overcome this type of thing. So there's resources, and there's hope, and there's healing. When we live in the pain of regret and the pain of shame and fear and all the things, it's keeping you from your purpose in life. You have a purpose. I have a purpose. Lisa has a purpose. We all have a purpose. So it's
Yeah.
keeping you from that. As long as, I'm just going to say Satan, because I truly believe it is Satan. I believe
Yes.
that as soon as Satan sees a doorway to attack you, and attack you based on decisions and things that you've done in your life, and that goes any decision that we've made, he is going to try to damper the thing that God has placed in your heart to do while you're here on this earth.
That absolutely. And yeah, he definitely wants you to think that nothing good will ever happen to you because of what you did. And, I've seen that. I've served at a retreat where a man thought that he was close to 70, I believe. And he thought that every bad thing that ever happened to him was because of the abortion that he participated in. And that definitely is what the enemy wants you to believe. He wants you to believe that you will never recover from this, that nothing good can ever happen to you. He messes so bad. Like just like the fact that I couldn't even say the word abortion for 29 years. Just imagine how much else he was controlling in my life if he was controlling my vocabulary. And when I just started contemplating all that, then it was like, no, you know what? It's time to heal. It's time to deal with this, because that is not, if we are believers and we believe that God says, I have a life and an abundant life for you, he means it. And at some point we've got to start believing it, but we've also got to walk the truth in that. And then we also have to hear what he's telling us to be able to walk the truth in that. And that is heal. That is go to him. It is take it to him and go and be able to say speak what it is. I made a big, big mess up, man. Like, and be able to say that and be okay going, and there's nothing I can do to fix it, but I sure can let you heal me, Jesus. And that's where you have to be willing to say, I messed up, but I need your healing, because this wound, man, this one's too big for me to deal with. And people need to know that, like, he's the only one that's going to heal this, and it's okay to say that you regret what you did. This idea of no, you made the decision. You got to stand on it until you die. It's like, you know what? If you had a car accident and killed somebody, you wouldn't be going, yep, I'm really glad that I was driving reckless or whatever. You wouldn't stick with that. You would go, gosh, I hate that happened. you know, it's just this whole, everything tries to get confused. And that is the enemy's game. He wants to confuse you. He wants to keep you silent. And he wants you to experience shame that you have to wear the rest of your life, but you don't. The beauty is you really don't.
Mhm.
And we want people to heal because God really does have an abundant life.
I just want to address something that you said too, that this idea of this fellow that came to your to the retreat and felt like everything bad that had happened to him was a result of that. If that is a lie of the enemy,
Mm-hmm.
and that
Yep.
is something that when you go back and you read through the book of Job, he will show you that that's not the God that we serve. God is a
Yeah.
forgiving God. He wants our hearts. He wants you. And then I also am recalling the story of David, King David. The Bible says
Yes.
that he was a man after God's own heart, but he made horrible mistakes. And if
Yes.
you are sitting in some of these things that that Lisa and I are addressing today, I would say go back and read some. I will put it in the show notes, like
Mm-hmm.
some of these
Mm-hmm.
verses that you can go back and read, because the you have to understand God is God is a wonderful God. God has been so faithful to me in my life, and I think when you follow him, you begin to see that. But also the way that we have a world that we're set up in, and Satan will try his best to damper everything that God is trying to do inside of you. And our job is to submit wholeheartedly, submit in the sense of, here's my heart, God, heal it, help me, show me how to heal, show me the resources, show me what to do, and I will do it because I want to live a happy, healthy, fulfilling life. Is life always going to be happy? No, but we can strive for happiness and for joy. And
Yeah.
sometimes joy is found in pain. Sometimes
Yeah.
God shows you joy through pain. I am curious. You're a Christian woman, and I'm assuming you have a church family,
Mm-hmm.
um,
I
and
do.
just in the culture that we're in now, what are you seeing churches talk more about this, step into the scene a little bit more, and be more um, open and loving and forthright in their thoughts and views of the healing process through abortion?
We, yes, we are now. And when we first got started in 2016, just trying to get in and speak at a church was not easy. Definitely, we became, and at that time we were under the umbrella of a pregnancy center. Now we in 2020 became our own nonprofit and really started pushing hard to try to meet with pastors and take the mystery away. What are we doing in deeper still? Because we didn't want them to think that we were saying just have an abortion, Jesus will heal you, because that's not at all what we were saying. And we are saying, like, we have to look at the hard reality of what we have done. I mean, you can only stand, you have to understand the depth of your sin to understand the depth of God's mercy. And so that's what we wanted to let the pastors and clergy know. Like, we're not sugarcoating abortion. We're talking about the hard truths about it, but also the greater truth is that Jesus does forgive. Jesus does heal. Jesus does love. And just all the steps that happen at a retreat. So that actually, in having those conversations, in revealing to them what we do cover in a retreat, did start giving them some confidence in going ahead and opening up the platform to us. And we've done anything from a 5 minute, we're deeper still. We host healing retreats for men and women that have an abortion decision in their past and Africa, the quick. And we've actually done full service interviews also. So we've done the gamut, anywhere between 5, 10, 20 minutes to the whole service. And so we are seeing that. We are continue to want to go broader because it's with those statistics, 1 in 3.5 women and 1 in 3, we all know, we all love somebody that's made this decision, whether we know it or not, we all do. And so they're definitely opening their doors more and more. We're getting into more and more churches. We're actually getting into more and more conferences, having exhibitors booths, and not just not religious conferences. That's actually even in secular world conferences. So we're doing what we can to bring up awareness, let people know you can heal. I know that you probably made this decision in a really difficult time. And it was not an easy decision, even though some people might want to make it seem like it was, or that you forgot all about it as soon as you did it. But you and I both know that it wasn't and that you didn't. And so you can heal. So yeah, we are getting doors open to us much more than when we first started. But there's still a lot of work to be done. And the idea of that once Roe was overturned, that our work, no, we've got a lot of work to do. We've got a whole lot of work to do. And the Lord is blessing us that we've even gone worldwide. So that has been incredible. My husband and I were able to serve on a retreat in Taiwan in September. We did 2 retreats and a training, and that was such a huge blessing. And so we're also a part of our nationwide movement. Earlier this year, I was blessed to certify as a trainer to help other Deeper Still chapters across the nation get started.
So you guys are doing a lot of things and helping a lot of people and just continuing to spread the outreach. And I'll tell you what I love about what you're doing is that just from having this conversation, and I hope that people can hear this, is that you know there's no judgment. It's all done out of love. It's all done out of a true, genuine heart of I really want to see people get healed from this thing and not suffer through the trauma. There is triumph on the other side of trauma, and sometimes it's just a journey to get there. And what you guys are doing, Lisa, is helping people navigate that journey, and it's beautiful. So I'm so grateful, and I just hope that through this podcast, it just gives you one more outlet to be able to spread the word and to maybe open up more church speaking engagements, and because it is something that needs to be addressed. My goal when I started this podcast is let's talk about the hard stuff that no one wants to talk about, because that's where the hurt is. That's where people are hurting. So
it sure
I
is.
I can't tell you how grateful I am for what you're doing. So before we start closing up, I know time goes by so fast when I do these podcasts. I'm like, it's already an hour.
No.
But I want you to tell our listeners like where they can find more of you. Tell them a little bit about these retreats, what that looks like, and if they are hurting through this, like what resources are there for them.
Okay. Well, the first thing I want them to know about Deeper Still and we're one of 30 chapters nationwide. And all of us, there are free and confidential, and no matter what chapter you go to, we make them free because we don't want there to be a reason why somebody can't heal. We want everyone to heal, and confidential for obvious reasons. So we do that, and they go from Friday afternoon until Sunday afternoon. And I know some people think, how can that kind of healing take place in 48 hours? All as I can say is supernaturally, because my whole life completely changed when I healed. And we hear this all the time. We have a woman that came to us and said, God used Deeper Still to save my life. So, so one resource is deeperstilluppercumberland.org. That is our website. If you are somewhere other than, locally in where we are here in Tennessee, and we have actually a couple other chapters, but find the chapter that's closest to you. If you go to deeperstill.org, You will see where all the chapters are. You will see the dates, whatever works the best for you, then go for it. And then also there is a book called Healing the Hurt That Won't Heal. Karen Ellison, the founder of Deeper Still, who is a beautiful lady inside and out. She wrote this book, and it can start, it's not to take the place of a retreat, but it can start to help you think about the things that you have not allowed yourself to think about for ages. And she also recently released a book called The Abortion Wounded Church. And it's to help people. It's to help the church. How do we talk about this topic? How do we help the people that are hiding in our congregation? Because those statistics of 1 in 3.5 and 1 in 5 are not just out there in the secular world. That's sitting in the churches. So the Abortion Wounded Church is all about how we can help people know how to deal with this in our church. And we also have a podcast, and hopefully you got the QR code from that. That is, let's see. Well, it's a Deeper Still podcast. So you can click on there. I've been close to 60. There's like 60, what do you call it? Podcasts. There's testimonies, men, women, pastors that have been involved, and just all kinds of testimonies on there about people that have what they walked through before their abortion, during, and then after, what healing looked like and the difference that happened when they changed. But yeah, so there's some resources out there, and we'd love to talk to you, even if you're afraid. Just do it afraid. Call afraid. We'd love to talk to you, even if it's just a phone call. We've helped so many people just calling and helping them to gain the courage to get the book, or to go to a retreat, get healing. Transformation happens in the retreats. I can't describe it to you. I only know what it did in my life and what I continue to see it do in the lives of people locally, nationally, and also internationally. The human heart is the same everywhere you go.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. And all of those things too, we will put in the show notes. So you'll have access to that. Please explore those show notes, because there's lots of resources there. But for those of you who are listening, for sure find Lisa there with Deeper Still. And Lisa, is there do you have final takeaways, or what would you like to really leave our audience with?
Wow. Just don't be afraid. There's more to be lost by staying afraid than there is to be gained by walking through the pain of talking about what you've been through and coming through on the other side, and getting healed.
Mhm.
It's freedom. It's a freedom that I can't begin to express. There's freedom for me in knowing it doesn't matter who knows. Like it just does. I know what Jesus thinks of me. He knows my heart. He knows my journey. He knows everything about me. So I can walk in that freedom of his love. But when you stay in the shame, and you stay in the guilt, you stay in hiding, you stay in the dark, you actually stay where the enemy can mess with you the most. And that's why I want you to have freedom. Walk into the light. There is so much freedom there. I'm not kidding. After my retreat, I left my retreat, and all of a sudden I realized everything was brilliant. Like the sky was so blue, and the grass was so green. It was crazy. And I realized, oh my goodness, I had been living life through a muted lens. And when you gain freedom, it's different. It is different. Let yourself walk in a new, different freedom.
That is so good. And I'm so grateful that you said that, because that's with anything, but particularly with this, for sure. Lisa, thank you so much for coming on and just sharing, all your expertise. And I will definitely point people in the direction of your podcast, those that need to hear more and get more. And, sometimes just hearing those stories builds courage for people to come step forward, and if this person can experience healing, so can I. And that's the goal. So is for you to experience healing. So we'll hopefully can send people your way. And I just thank you so much for all of your expertise and just for sharing with us today.
Well, Amber, I appreciate you having me on today. It's a huge topic on my heart, but it is important. It is important for people to talk about. So just thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to Through the Trauma podcast. If you have found value in this episode or believe in the mission behind what we are doing, please subscribe so that you never miss any future episodes. Also, be sure to check out our transformation project at transformationthroughtraumaproject.com, where we help inspirational stories get heard on a larger scale through multiple platforms. If you know someone who can benefit from this episode, please share it with them. Until next time.